So here we go to understanding risk. In the pre-construction process and how to manage it. You really want to understand your scope. You don't want unclear contracts. And sometimes we don't have the time to go through the contract. Listen, this doesn't make sense that I'm saying it. We think we don't have the time. Sometimes we believe we don't have the time. But we do need to make time to understand what is unclear in our contract. How is unclear in the drawings? Where there is conflict between the drawings and the specs. Understands possibilities of change in the supply chain. Price volatility. How is the tariff going to affect the pricing? How do we know that? Right?
And how do you do that?
How do the political environment affects that? You do it. You know how you do it? As a CEO, as a leader, as a project manager, you have to be so good at managing your time that you create, mind my words, create time. It's not that there's no more time than anybody else that has done amazing things. Because we have time to do things that don't add any value to us. Sometimes we spend too much time in YouTube or whatever. But how much is that adding to our bottom line? Creating time for whatever that we want. And so as a business owner, having time to think once a week, 2 hours, with a really good question. What's the question that you just asked me?
How are you going to deal? How are you dealing with their arts?
Okay, write that down.
I'd like to answer that.
See, yes, but let me finish this one moment, please. Write it down. And next Monday, Tuesday, when you're back at the office, you have 2 hours to answer that question. But you also call Emilio, call me, or whatever, somebody. It's a moment of deep thinking, not reactive thinking. Yes, Emilio. Thank you. How does she do it?
In times of uncertainty, like we're dealing with now, you have no idea what it's going to do. How is it going to affect, for instance, steel? You're dealing with rebar. Anything that's coming into the country that can affect any of the equipment you're going to purchase. Because I know you do a lot of rent versus purchase. In times of uncertainty, your safety net is the duration you put on your proposal. My price is only good for 30 days. My price is only good for 60 days. And that's right now, that's probably the best thing you're going to do. Later on, you can get more fine tuning as you see what happened. But right now it's uncertainty. You don't know what's going to affect you.
Right.
But putting a cap, on your proposal, because we had, and sometimes owners will say, give me a proposal that lasts, 9 months, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But we've had to do it. Yeah. And you know what? 9 months and 1 day, I was sending a revised price because the price had gone up $500,000.
Yeah.
In 9 months. So
the other thing is the proposal is important, the contract. Because the contract overrides the proposal. Okay? Mind that they're going to tell you that.
Yeah.
And another thing that you want to do, I don't know if you do it, when you're pricing any project as a trade partner, you have to read the main contract. Yeah. And after COVID, I guarantee you many contracts have the language that no price increase. Because that created a lot of commotion in COVID. So put the language in yours that we will not absorb prices increase that we can control. But when you say that, be aware that it's possible they're going to tell you, we're not going to give you the contract.
Oh, I lost 3 contracts for that.
And
it was a win for me.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes there's a saying in our industry, sometimes the most profitable project is the one you didn't do. Because you didn't lose money. Okay? You want to say something, sweetie?
Yeah, I wanted to say something in regards to, for example, what we were talking about right now, like regulatory changes, tariffs, market shifts. There's a thing in negotiations that's called black swans. So black swans are things, you know how they say, we know what we know what we don't know, and we don't know what we don't know. So when you enter that area, we don't know what we don't know, that could impact the value of the contract or the roles, responsibilities, you can add to the contract actually a clause that's called black swan. And that's really to kind of like counteract if anything unexpected outside of what is the scope of the contract, scope of the work happens. So for example, right now, the tariffs, right? The regulatory changes, how the market is shifting. Then once you have that, you install in the contract, what are the triggering conditions for these black swans? Like, what does it have to occur? Let's say like these now, let's say tariffs, instead of like, additional 10% for China, it's like additional 20%. Or Canada and Mexico have to now go to like 30%. Once that happens, then you go into what is the renegotiated mechanism? Like we have to come back to the table, renegotiate the pricing or the terms, and then from there go forward. But you can protect yourself. You don't have to lock yourself fully in because, and this is kind of coming from a background because I'm actually a trained diplomat and a negotiator. So one of the biggest things is know what you know that there are things that you don't know, and there are things that you don't know, but they can happen. So you have to protect yourself as much as you can when it comes to that liability. So it's called black swan. So whenever you guys get a chance, look into it. But that's one of the ways that you can protect yourself, your business, your roles, responsibilities, and still calculate and protect the relationship as well. Because when you do sit at the table, people tend to go into that zero-sum negotiations. Like if you concede something, that means I'm losing something, which is not the truth. If we're sitting at the table, it's us against the issue, right? And that will allow you to protect yourself, but at the same time still preserve and now cultivate that relationship.
Have you used that in a construction? Do you know any trade partner that has used that in a contract or has been successful at getting an owner? A large company, typically that's what is her client, a large company or an entity, a public entity that has allowed to change that clause.
So I'm not familiar really with construction, but I'm familiar with other commercial as well as government entities. And that is also discussed that when you're signing a contract, it's not just like thrown in there. It's like both parties have to agree, hey, we know that there could be certain things that could occur that neither one of us is aware of. Here's what's going to trigger it, that we both agree on the triggers. If that occurs, everything that we both have agreed, this is how we're going to renegotiate the terms. So it's not just one party, it's both parties, it's part of the contract. And of course, like anything else, any other clauses, they have to be respected and enforced. Like I said, I've seen it in other commercial areas. I've seen it in the government, really, in negotiations. And it's very, very helpful. It's actually preserves both sides where it's like we agreed something could happen. We both agreed what is it that can happen that's triggering? What are the circumstances? And then how will we then sit back on the table and then address those issues that both satisfactory?
It's a good idea. And I'm curious, what would attorneys say? Because with that information, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I want to ask my attorney. Because construction is, when you're doing $100 million worth of work, that clause like that, I'm talking about, you always want to think about the other person. How does it affect them and their potential to manage risk? What they're looking for is to protect themselves, and you too. So when you were adding an offer like that, how do you overcome that fear that they have? If you can go into the negotiation, not only proposing something like that, but also the solution, where they don't feel that it's an open check. Because what happens in construction is the budgets are difficult to change later on. There's a whole dynamic around. Well, thank you for that.
I'd like to ask one question.
Yes.
That's a really good point. But isn't a black swan considered an act of God?
No,
No.
a force majeure.
No.
Force majeure is one type of a clause. Black swan is one of the things that, like, for example, what she was saying, there's a drywall, but I don't know that there's like layers and layers and layers.
Layers and different.
Exactly. It's like one of those things that during the due diligence or intel recon, you haven't been able to find because you haven't dug deeper or because it didn't require you to. So that's what triggered me. You saying like, we did not know, like, this is where the line is.
Right.
How do we know? So if they require you to take down that wall or take down the drywall and there's more space, this is where it comes in.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more broad than force majeure in terms of that you can actually create like you were saying, you want the both parties to agree. You
Right.
create those circumstances, those perimeters, and all parties agree on.
Yeah. So in construction, that's a latent defect. There's attorney. There's ways to do that. You want to have a really good attorney.
Mhm.
That's a good investment because all these terms can be negotiated. Latent defects, of course, you break the wall, you find a way, but you want to add really quick is that we're trying to good
Brief us.
go.
Yeah. So in my experience, what has happened is that I'm able to negotiate with the project managers with these massive companies, right? And I'm becoming good at, and I use all the technology that I can use so I can go into my meetings prepared. So, and they know that. So now they're putting on my contracts like in last word for turn. It's like I saw that the project manager doesn't have the ability to negotiate a start a contract after I have negotiated
Right.
for the night.
Yeah, that's in my contracts too. That's in my contract too because look, it's all about risk management.
Yeah.
As another thing I want you to have clear. Cash is important. Cash flow is king. It really is. Operating cash flow. The business that you're in is a business where you are becoming really good at managing operating cash flow and risk. Where you lose money and you know where the money that you're supposed to be making is really getting to the bank, kind of in simple terms, right? For that, you have to be good at managing risk because the risk is where you lose it before you even get it. It's kind of funny.
So
Like,
how do you go around it?
you create a machine. And there's 12 pillars for cash flow to really get to you. And this is why this is risky. This industry is not risky because somebody decided to get really good at managing risk. How? You gotta have a good attorney. And not every attorney is good. Not every attorney knows about what you do. Some attorneys are really good at answering the questions you have around demolition, abatement, are really good. That's important. And one that has you in their best interest, that respects you and values you as a client, that aligns with your mission, aligns with your values. You do not want an attorney that it doesn't align with you. Same relationship as an employee, same relationship as a client. You have to align because if they don't respect you, you think they're going to defend you well? We've done that too. Maybe they don't even believe you're right. And they're not willing to put the fight. So you manage risk at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. And that is all the time. Even when you don't want to. So price volatility and unreliable trade partners and labor shortages, another risk. So you go anticipate and create a strategy around that.